Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
Hey, I'm Broke.
And I'm Joke.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
What's happening, folks? We have got a teething baby who is asleep almost. He's moving around a little bit.
Oh, no.
We are on daddy duty, which is funny because...
It's better than Duty Daddy.
Better than being a duty daddy for sure. But I'm KC, and it's Tyler. We're going to talk about something near and dear, so very dear to our
Deer with an A or with two E's?
Both. Deer and deer. Deer and deer hunting, I think is what they call it. But listen, I have spent a large amount of time in my life with a small amount of money in my bank account. And that really has not changed much at all. As you get older, things start to loosen up a little bit. And I think that that's one of the good reasons for us to revisit this topic. We asked recently on a Facebook post if there was anything that y'all wanted to hear us talk about or anybody you wanted to hear us interview on the podcast. And one of the things that was mentioned was that somebody really enjoyed a podcast that we did way back in episode 16. Can't believe I'm telling you that right
Next
now.
time somebody says something like this, I'm about to throw these dudes
Throw
down.
the hands, dude.
Going down.
Listen, we were
Don't
jokes.
make me listen. Don't make me listen to my podcast.
We were jokes
again.
back then. It's so slow. And Tyler and I both dedicated ourselves to go back and listen to that. I actually have a confession. I only listened to 45 minutes of it. It was like an hour and a half long. And we were so slow and boring. So if you've been with us since that episode, we really appreciate that because we feel we've gotten better at this thing. Hopefully you think so too. If not, let us know.
You must be a boring person.
That's right. You must really like boring. You must be from Minnesota for sure.
Oh, dang.
I'm just kidding.
Minneapolis is
I can
not
say
a
that
boring
because I'm
place.
half Minnesotan, right?
Yeah.
So
You align with those people.
that's right. Rural Minnesota.
Okay. Yeah.
But rather, as we've gotten older, maybe we've learned a little bit about this stuff, figured out some more things about how to be cheap, and things loosen up a little bit as you get older. So if you're 22, 23 out there really hitting that struggle, eating ramen to make it through deer season, we understand. We also eat that in deer season from time to time, probably because it's warm and good. But we'll talk about that kind of stuff.
There's probably plenty of 22-year-olds out there right now. Well, not right now, but where a couple of years ago they were just out in the oil field making 3 times the money that I've made in my entire life.
That's right, man. And right now they're sitting on 2 stimmy checks and wondering what they're going to do with all that money.
Yeah.
But we thought it would be a good thing to come back and cover some of this stuff about how to really hunt on a budget. And I think that there's, of course, a ton of different aspects to your lifestyle. And if you want to really dive into like how to save money and how to accumulate wealth and yada yada, this probably isn't the podcast for you. There's plenty of old bald white guys that want to tell you that kind of stuff on podcasts, so go listen to those. But we're really going to zone this into hunting stuff, right? We're going to talk about budget bucks, and everyone's going to think about gear and about buying gear and all that kind of stuff, deer gear, but really there's so many more aspects to this thing, right? Like, it's not just about the stuff you have. It's about the places you go. It's about the animals you hunt. It's all about all this stuff. So we really thought we'd kind of start this off a little bit more, a little bit broader, and talk about all aspects of access, right?
Obviously, we've all got different goals, different things that make us excited and happy, and things that we don't like, right? Some people really hate the cold. Some people really hate the heat, you know? So, like, there's so many different aspects to what, for you, is important to spend money on and what is not important to spend money on. So just keep that in mind as we go out or go about this. But, you know, we've all both derived a lot of ideas here about things that you could do that could save you money or that, you know, keep you from at least spending money or bigger money than you
could
would
put elsewhere.
You could put it elsewhere.
And that's the other thing, too, we probably need to cover is that if you don't want to spend any money, then hunting is probably not for you.
No, I would say probably, Dying would be
the only thing, honestly. Like, most things are going to cost you something, right?
Yeah.
And if you're the kind of person who has passion and wants to go do something, it's going to cost you a little something. Now, of course, there are hobbies that are more expensive than others, you know, where like, you know, global travel is going to be pretty expensive. But, you know, if you want to hunt, you can definitely do it on a budget, but you got to have, you know, you need to work to be able to make it happen in some sense of the matter.
Yeah.
So
it's going to cost you something, is what you're saying. I mean, whether it's time, effort, or money, this stuff's going to cost you something, but there are some ways to maybe do it a little cheaper.
Cost less.
Yeah.
You don't want to be working your life away just so you can go hunt 3 days a year.
Right.
You know, like that's kind of flip-flopped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So with that, let's talk about maybe some opportunity, access, you know, how you go about that. Because, I mean, we all know there are dudes that can go out to the old Vermejo and kill a big elk, right?
Yeah.
As Brennan Rhodes would say.
That would be nice.
But, you know, not everybody can do that. I wish that I could, honestly. Honestly, I would love that.
And we're not above buying a landowner tag at some point in time to go do some elk hunting.
I'm not above going to Vermejo if you guys want to just give me some money. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like,
maybe we can build a Vermejo Pro Staff.
That's what I'm thinking. That's a good plan, man. I love Pro Staffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, there's different levels of what you can afford here and of access and stuff. But for us, we're going to talk about kind of more our experience, what we like to do, what we can do, what we feel like we can pull off, and then maybe give you some ideas. So why don't you start us out, K.C.?
Well, one of the things that I really like to think about, and when we say access, let me establish this, that doesn't just mean a place you're going to go hunt. That means all aspects of hunting somewhere, right? So it's licensing and all that stuff. So to start with that, using your in-state license, the place that you live, the place that you're a resident, to your utmost ability is going to be the most budget-friendly thing that you can do. Whether you're in Texas, Colorado, Vermont, whatever it is, I am almost positive
Preferably not Vermont.
Preferably. I don't know. There's some pretty good trout streams up there, but
That's true.
yeah.
Tommy boy.
I think there's some, Tom. I think there's some elk up there, too. Of course, there's moose. I don't know if they have a season anymore or not. We're digressing a little bit here. But I can guarantee you your in-state license is going to be at least 1/10, if not less, the cost of an out-of-state about near anywhere, right? Like, for instance, if you live in Colorado, I think it costs you like $45 to go shoot an elk, and it costs us about $700. Okay, so using your in-state tags as much as you can is going to be a huge saver for you. Now, I know that you like to travel and you like to go hunt new places, and that's cool, and we'll talk about that. But say, for instance, in Texas, I believe we have 5 deer tags. 5 whitetail tags.
5 whitetail tags.
And there's 2 mule deer tags, which are a lot harder to fill. But, you know, you can concentrate on those 5 whitetail tags most likely unless you live in Trans-Pecos. But for the most part, a lot of counties are going to at least allow you to fill 4 of those 5 in one county. So if you play your cards right and hunt multiple seasons, meaning archery, rifle, and, you know, some counties muzzleloader, you can shoot 4 deer right where you live and not have to travel hardly anywhere, and it costs you the cost of a hunting license, which I think in Texas is $63 or something like that. I don't know. I always buy Super Combo, which is probably also something to add in there.
Combination licenses.
Yeah, Tyler, somebody visiting
I thought it
us?
was raining all of a sudden. I'm like, dang, I think my windows are open.
Are your windows open?
I don't know. I think so.
That'd be kind of sketchy.
Gotta keep an eye on things.
That's right. But yeah, Super Combo, if you hunt and fish, is going to probably be the way to fly in the state of Texas.
So hunting and fishing combo licenses, whatever state you're in, tend to be a little bit cheaper if you're an all-around outdoorsman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But absolutely, you need to be taking the steps, taking the measures to hunt in-state as much as you can if your goal is to hunt as much as you can.
Also, you wanted to talk about draws a little bit too, and you know, you mentioned that like a non-resident sometimes maybe 10 or more times the expenditure to hunt. What about, is there a difference in the draw process in Texas for a non-resident versus a resident as far as the cost?
So. No, to put in, it costs the same.
Yeah.
And then your actual non-resident hunting license, I think, is only about double of what a resident is. So Texas is a pretty cheap state to travel to hunt. And then if you want to put in for draws, it's going to cost you like $3 a pop or something like that.
But in regards to access, Texas is also probably one of the hardest states to actually get access to hunt in.
Yeah, don't think you're going to come in. I'm going to go explore the public land in Texas. You're going to go burn Biden gas is what you're going to do, and it's real expensive. So, yeah, don't really think about the value of that per se. But, you know, if you know somebody with a family place or something down here, not a bad option for sure. But what you were talking about with the draw stuff, like in Texas, it costs you $130 a pop usually if you do happen to draw a tag for deer at least. I don't know about the other stuff, but
squirrel too.
Yeah, some squirrel hunts are expensive. Yes.
You know about that.
Yeah, I know about that, and they've changed that since because nobody applied for it. Or some sucker showed up and said, "I'm not paying that," and left.
See ya.
But some states, you don't have to pay anything more once you draw a special tag.
Actually, a lot of states, I think, are that way, right?
Yeah, but you have to have the license purchased, right? So, like, for instance, everyone knows about this state, so we'll talk about it. Colorado, which you're not really looking at whitetail there. You're thinking about elk and mule deer. You're going to pay the same for an over-the-counter tag as you will for a draw license, and it costs you, I think... Well, didn't they bump it up to $10 per application in Colorado or something like that?
Yeah.
We just did that. I can't really remember. But, yeah, it's not going to cost you more than it would if you already had the license, right? Some states you have to buy a hunting license, which is a nominal cost, and then you apply for hunts, and you might get those. And if you don't get those, then you have to go buy, like, deer tags or something like that. But
how much if you draw a wolf tag in Colorado?
I don't know. I think they just hand those out under the counter, not over the counter. You know what I mean? It's under
UTC.
the counter. Yeah, yeah. UTC unit.
not to be confused with like a urinary tract confection. Sorry, I don't even know.
I'm about to spit that water out. Golly. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the thing with draw hunts, and really, it's kind of a catch-22 because if you're a budget hunter, maybe you don't need to be looking at that. Maybe you need to be looking at stuff that's kind of easy to get to. But at the same time, as a budget hunter, part of doing that is maximizing your time. And there's going to be no better way than to have a better hunt that you possibly are more successful on than to limit the number of people that can go into the same place that you're going to.
No doubt. I mean, that's a big part of it. And then there's also, if you look at it like, well, say you draw here in Texas, for instance, and you got $80 or $130 or whatever it is to actually buy that particular tag, it doesn't go against, those tags a lot of times don't go against your tags. Plus, like, what are you going to spend on a lease if you actually have a lease? So, you know, like you could spend $1,500, $2,500, $3,000, $5,000 on a lease here in Texas just to be a part of a lease with multiple members. Or you can go, you know, hunt on a limited quota hunt or whatever for $130. And if you draw 2 of them that year, you're still only in $250, you know, or whatever. So it's a pretty good deal, really.
And usually one of the cool things about draw hunts, I mean, those are usually on some type of public land, and you usually get to go to a really neat place. You know, like even like the obscure East Texas WMAs are usually cooler than your average private land spot because they're more natural.
They set them aside for more natural purposes. And you know, the thing when it comes to other states too, when you're talking about drawing, you can say it's $700 in Colorado. Well, let's just say, okay, for like New Mexico or Idaho, a state that doesn't have a point system, it's say it's $700 if you draw an elk tag. Well, it's pretty much that, if you draw this kind of good tag or if you draw this really good tag. So might as well put in for the really good tag and go on an incredible hunt for the same price as any other hunt that you would go on,
But you don't get to go on that near as often.
But you're saving money when you don't go.
That's good.
So,
maybe. But then if you only go on like a really awesome hunt like once every 20 years, you're not very skilled at what you're doing.
No, and then you end up crying.
Yeah. Oh, so while we're talking about elk right quick, let's talk about that. Some states are real expensive to go hunt deer. In some states, you can almost spend about that same amount to go shoot like a cow elk or something. So if you are interested in shooting something to eat, and that's your top priority and trophy hunting's down the list a little bit, you might think about, going to one of these states where you can get what they call like List B tags or population control tags for cow elk. That's usually later in the year. And you're coming out with 200 pounds of meat as opposed to, you go to Texas and shoot a scraggly old whitetail, you might leave with 40 pounds. If that is something that you really do value, and I would say that I'm somewhere in the middle. I like antlers and I like experience and I like meat. So I kind of got to weigh all that out. But if you really, really want to put meat away, or you need to this is real, right? You need to justify to your wife why you need to go do this. Hey, I'm going to come home with 200 pounds. Also, those hunts usually have pretty high success rates. So keep that in mind as well.
So, real quick, I got 2 points on this subject as far as access and stuff goes. I'm going to throw them out there real quick. We are already kind of running long on this thing, and I can tell with all the points we have, we're never going to get there. So let me just throw these out there real quick. One, hunt hogs. When you're talking about opportunity and access, you've got tons of it with door knocking or on public land, and there's lots of hogs in the state of Texas especially, but anywhere in the South, really, you stand a chance of getting into some hogs. So if you're a southern hunter, then go hunt hogs and bring home a lot of meat too, right?
I eat that all the time.
Yeah, and you make some great dishes with it. I get to partake sometimes. Also, go door knocking with a kid. So if you have a nephew or a cousin or somebody who's like 16, like say like 9 to 16 or something like that, tell them, hey, let's go find a place to go shoot a deer this year. And you go starting to knock some doors and say, hey, I'm here with old Jimmy John, my cousin, and we were trying to get out and shoot some deer this year. Any chance you got a place that we can, and obviously you've looked at these people's property, they do, but anyway, that's a good opportunity for you to get some access there. Those are my 2 points in regards to access.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another thing, I guess back to the public versus private stuff. If you do choose to hunt public land, you need to consider how far that public land is away from your house and how much travel time you're going to have, and also when you get there, how much pressure that place is going to have. Because maybe you've got a place that isn't ideal 30 minutes from home, and you've got a place that's really awesome 4 hours from home, but it gets a lot of pressure. You might be better off just spending more time in the woods closer to home at not quite as good of a hunting spot. I've been in that situation before. You show up and you think it's going to be awesome, and there's dudes going everywhere, and you're like, oh, this hurts bad.
I've got, and we're going to talk a lot about lifestyle stuff here in this podcast too, and I've got one that kind of fits more into that category, but matches up a lot with what you're saying here, and that's map scout vigorously. So, spend less gas money and more time, or I guess less gas trying to find a deer with your boot scouting and all this and that, and you're driving, and be more of like a precise tactician when you go to scout and hang cameras, and be efficient with your time and hang several cameras when you go out, as opposed to having to spend all day finding a place for 1 or 2 cameras because you've map scouted, you know exactly the point you're going to. And this is stuff you can do in bed at night, right? Like you hop in bed, everybody pulls their phone up and looks at their phone for, 15 to an hour usually before they go to sleep. When it comes to map scouting, the program we use is Onyx, and I think a lot of people know that, and a lot of people know about the app that we use. We use it a lot when we're on these trips and stuff like that to help us be more efficient with our gas there, but we also use it night to night. KC is like always just laying in bed, looking at map stuff, sharing dots with me, saying, what do you think about this? I like this, whatever. And since 2017, when we killed Nameless, we have been believers in Onyx's mapping system. and their user-friendly icons and all the things that that help us to kill deer and to collaborate together so that we are effective when we're in the field together. So definitely check out onX. But anyway, spend that time on a map, figure out exactly where you're going to go. That way you don't go over there too often in the summer like we did in 2017. And you're very precise when you go in there and you get a lot of work done and you know what you're doing before you go in.
Yeah, man, that is a good point. I like that a lot because I also like Map Scout. And if you don't really know what that is or you want to learn how to do it a little bit better, Tyler and I never claim to be experts in anything, but we feel like we're pretty good at the map scout and stuff. We kind of proved it by shooting some deer, kind of sight unseen on some places. And we've got a series on the old interwebs called the Map Scout Challenge that you should go check out. I think it's linked in the description below. So be
it's
sure.
So good. I have to say,
dude,
man,
it's fun.
I watched a little bit of one this morning.
I saw you commented on one of them.
Yeah.
on the Tennessee one, I think, or something like that.
I was like, man, this is a good series. And I'm not trying to toot our own horn or nothing, but I worked real hard on that series last summer, and it was a terabyte of footage. It was an entire summer project, working all day, every day on editing this stuff pretty much. And so it turned out really cool though, man. There's cool music, fun times with the guys,
Oh, yeah.
Anthony and Sean and some of the other people we got to hang out with.
Oh, yeah, man. It's good stuff. It's fun. And we found out a lot of stuff and learned a lot of stuff about deer. Right? And that's what this is all about, trying to kill some deer. And we're talking about cervids, so that's why we threw elk in there.
Cervids.
And it takes a little something to do that. You can't just go out in the woods. It's not like foraging, right? You actually have to have some gear to kill deer, right? And that's right. So we're going to talk about gear. And I think that if you clicked on this because you thought the budget thing was a cool idea, you probably were thinking gear a lot. And for good reason, because it's really kind of one of the more expensive things. Because a new bow right now, we just priced them. I think it's $1,149 for some. It depends on which ones, right? But that's kind of the median of what it costs to get into a new bow. Now you can go, if you haven't ever bow hunted before, you can definitely get into them in cheaper ways. And I guess we could probably talk about that. Used, you and I have done the used bow thing quite a bit throughout our lives. I bought a new one about 4 years ago and have shot it for a while. But it's also a really good way to get into a decent bow that you can kill something with. You don't have to have the latest and greatest. It's the same thing with cars, right? You know that when you drive a new car off the lot, it loses a ton of value, and I'm sure bows aren't much different. Of course, you can get outdated on some stuff, and they just aren't made to last for 100 years, especially when you're talking about the compounds and stuff of nowadays. Like, you're going to have issues with the limbs and cams and new things that pop up, and you're going to need to replace strings and this and that. But all that to say, if you find a bow that's 3 or 4 years old, on a Facebook group or somewhere, you got a buddy that's, he's the new bow every year type of guy. What a great guy to take advantage of. You know what I mean? You're going to be ignorant, so I'm not. I'm going to buy your old bow, but, seriously, getting a used bow is a good way to at least get into it, or step up from your 15-year-old bow to a 5-year-old bow or whatever, But I think it's really about just finding something that you're proficient with and feel like you can shoot pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's to me, that's definitely like some of these things are gonna be a little bit redundant to the last episode we did, which was 16, which that's like 4 years ago.
But
so
this is so that you don't have to go listen to that one.
Yes, preferably you don't go listen to that one. So yeah, this will help you out, and then hopefully we will try to. I mean, my ideas were. I was trying to come up with stuff that was a little bit different, but there are things that are just good tips, man. Like, for me, a big part of this gear spot is taking care of your gear,
I had that written down that I was going to prompt you to say that.
Yeah.
You say that a lot. I'm pretty hard on my gear. I don't really take care of my stuff very well. I try to in the off season, kind of take care, but I also have this feeling like it's a tool. I'm going to use it. I don't want to tear it up. You know? But
there are things you can do. Buy string wax. We talked about that in the last episode. Use a little bit of string wax. This is a cheap thing that'll keep your string in good shape. And how much is a new string?
$150 pretty much.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
dude.
super expensive.
Yeah, and so there's that. Think about your truck. Are you running mud tires the whole year? You know what I mean? Like, do you really need them? Could you
I just
get away
bought
with some cheaper
a
tires?
brand new set of street tires for my
tires,
truck.
man.
It's got, truck tires still going to have decent grip. And let me tell you something.
Four-wheel drive will get you out of almost anything.
Way more than some rackety old mud tire that makes noise going down the road.
Yeah. So there's that. Gun oil, right? Like keep your guns in good shape. Waterproof your boots and some of your gear. That way the waterproofing, helps your boots from cracking and getting wearing out essentially, right? There's a lot of that. So like leather conditioner, waterproofing, compressed air for your electronic devices or anything like that.
Can also freeze warts off with that. So it's a double duty.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, you can do that. You can blow out your trail cameras with that, right? Stuff like that. And then just properly storing gear out of weather is a good thing as well because things rust and wear out in UV light. So
they do. Everybody was real concerned with me leaving my deer cart out in the rain. It's like, I think it's going to be fine. It cost $20 as is. So we might just need to get a new one of those. But I guess that brings up a good point. Don't be afraid to buy the cheapo stuff and try it out. You don't want to buy the cheapest of cheaps and just have it break. Cheaps. I think those are Easter snacks. At the same time, you don't have to buy name brand stuff, and I think that goes across the board for gear stuff. But
if you do want name brand gear, you can find a lot of that on some of these Facebook group pages.
Dude, Facebook groups and Facebook Marketplace is legit.
It is. The Marketplace is a great place to find a deer cart and stuff like that. Old stands, right?
People steal them out of the woods and then they just put them on Facebook Marketplace and you can buy them.
That's right. You also, if you like the name brand stuff though, like Sitka Gear has a resale page, man. Like if you're looking for some nice gear that's a decent price, there's a lot of stuff moving on that page.
Oh yeah.
So if you're interested in it.
There's a ton of guys out there and more power to them because they kind of drive the market. But like, there's a bunch of guys who will buy stuff and just lose the the sticker price off of it just to try it because they are interested in that and doing that kind of stuff. We got a good buddy that used to be that way. He now has a girlfriend, so he doesn't do that as much. But before, he'd buy stuff just try it out, and then resell it. And it's cool because it just allows more people to try stuff out.
Yeah.
One of the things that you really have to have specific to yourself is arrows.
Yeah.
Now, I guess there's caveats to that. You can say, well, the Indians, whatever. You really have to have arrows that really fit your bow and your draw length and all that. And that's another thing with bows is, you need to take it to a shop and get the draw length fitted to you as good as you can at least or whatever. But arrows are pretty specific with spine weights and GPI and point weight and all that, right? And you can nerd out on that stuff, and we have a few podcasts about that kind of stuff. There's other people out there that really, really go into depth with that, so go check something else out on that. But in general, in the past, we, especially myself, have been kind of guilty about really wanting to go down the premium route on arrows and really get the highest end stuff. And I kind of experimented with some of that stuff. And not to say that I'm going cheapo anymore, but I don't know. I kind of got to the point where it didn't make a lot of sense for me and for us as the element to really try to push something that's, really expensive for people who maybe don't need quite that, right? I still really find a lot of value in a heavy-walled, heavy arrow. I think that's what really does the trick. And and I really like these vector arrows that we started shooting. Okay, nothing's wrong with anything we've shot in the past, and quite honestly, about near any arrow will do the trick in the right certain situation. But I think that with these vectors, we found that value spot that they're not as cheap as like that bin at Walmart that has like the PVC pipe and there's a bunch of different areas and you go by and thunk, 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 they're not those.
That's the wounding deer rack right there.
Yeah, Wounder special right here. But if you get anything specialized, like if you're used to, carbon or Maxima Reds or whatever, or like an Easton Axis, a vector's like that, except it's not going to break hardly ever, and you can order them custom made to your fit, and they show up at your door ready to rock and roll. And that's pretty cool.
They're gonna punch 2 holes in things a lot of times too.
They sent us, for real. They're gonna pass through because they're heavy, right? But they sent us a 6-pack to try out the other day, and
of arrows,
yeah. And dude, I don't know if they're just good at guessing or what, but Isaac sent me the exact arrow that my bow needs, and I don't think we're gonna have to experiment very much.
You're like, man, all right,
good.
I guess that's what I'm shooting this year. Can you send more of those exact things?
And I think that there is some value into this idea of getting an arrow that's not gonna break every time it goes through a shoulder or every time a deer steps on it or whatever. Because I mean, we saw last year with a heavy walled arrow how you can just, a hog can whack it up against a tree and it doesn't break, and then you can still hunt with it, And it kind of goes back to that whole, back in the day you used to shoot aluminum arrows, and if they even touched anything, they were toast, right? So I really think that there is quite a bit of value in having something durable like that.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
One thing that I know, we're talking mostly deer stuff here, but one thing that my dad did, I don't know, over 10 years ago that has been nice is he just bought like cases of shotgun shells. And like, when you buy cases of shells and they last you for 10 years, which they will if you keep them in a good spot, right? Dry spot, like they'll last you and they'll be just fine. Now you've got all this ammo that like, you spent prices that were 10 years ago minus inflation, and that's what you're shooting now.
It appreciates.
What I mean? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like if you got the money to drop whatever, a couple $100 or several hundred or a couple $1,000 on ammo, it's a good idea. Now, right now, we're seeing like ridiculous ammo prices and shortages.
If you can find
everything
ammo,
else. Yeah. And so like, I think, and we're seeing the same thing in a lot of parts of the economy. I'm not going to get too far on a tangent here, but just real quick, like we're seeing these hiked prices. We're seeing like some crazy builders markets and buyer and seller markets and stuff. And I think, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here, but I think that this won't last forever. If you're following what I'm saying, so just hang in there.
Yeah,
maybe in a year or so, you might find some better prices on ammo and other things.
Yeah, just maybe don't go plink 1,000 rounds this weekend. Just save them. And that way you don't need to buy more, right? So speaking of bullets, the tips of these arrows are called broadheads, and I think that broadheads are kind of the baby brother to the whole new bow every year kind of guy, where people like to experiment and mess around with it, and it's kind of easy to do as opposed to like experimenting with arrows is tough because you have to be able to do some math and tune and all that kind of stuff, whereas like a 125 is a 125, right? So guys like to kind of jump back and forth and try all kinds of different types of broadheads, and if you like to do that, there's nothing wrong with that, but this is bucks on a budget, right? If you find something that works, just stick with it and always shoot it because it's never going to not work because the deer don't really change. They're always going to be about the same.
Yeah.
Now, you can go, to Alberta or something and find big old thick-skinned whitetails or whatever, but for the most part, they're still going to be, hair, skin, bone, good stuff, and the other way going out.
Hopefully
right?
lungs.
Hopefully lungs, yes.
That's
doubles.
For me, like, pretty much, I don't know, years and years and years, over a decade, I pretty much used a very similar thing. Like I used to use a Spitfire 100 grain 3 blades, and then they came out with like a cut on contact that looked like kind of like a Rage or whatever. So I tried those for a few years and they worked fine, but it's the same broadhead. It's just got a cut on contact head kind of thing. And so like, for me, that was what I did. I said, okay, well, here's something that I don't really have to spend money on. I know it works. I've killed deer with it, but now I feel a little bit of more of a responsibility to try a few different things and tell people, hey, this is what we're seeing. Because podcasts. If there's an entertaining aspect, I'm sure, but a lot of you guys are here to find out some information, right? So, if I don't have any more dimensions to me than, what I've been doing for the last 20 years on something and can't tell you a whole lot, then you may not want to hang around and listen to me. So right. That's kind of like where I feel a little bit of responsibility in trying some new stuff. And at the same time, like I am a very big proponent of if you find something that works, there's not a whole lot of reason to change it up most of the time, you know.
I can tell you this, though. I used to shoot rages a whole lot, and they work real good on whitetail around here. I shot a rage into an elk that should have killed him, and it didn't because it didn't go in very far one time. And I think that there's a couple aspects to that. Mechanicals on elk aren't the greatest idea. You can do it, and I'm sure some of you that are listening have shot an elk with mechanical, and I killed elk with mechanicals, right? But B, most mechanical broadheads, once you shoot them, it's expended. Like it's done.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things that I really like about fixed blade broadheads is that you can get two different types. You can get the kind that you sharpen, and you get the kind that you replace blades in. I think either one is probably in the long run. If you find one that you like a lot, a more inexpensive option or a less expensive option, that's kind of a double describer right there. But a less expensive option would be to get something like a, cut on contact, one-piece broadhead, maybe bleeders or whatever, that you can resharpen and just use. Because, it might be, $60 for three, $90 for three, whatever you want to spend. But if you can just sharpen that thing and use the same broadheads over and over again until you lose one, like that's a whole lot better than, I just shot a squirrel with that rage and now it's toast and that cost me $14. I've done that too, right?
You know why they named them Rage?
Because it makes you real mad when the deer runs off with them just, stuck in their shoulder.
No, I was thinking it's because they knew that everybody that deer hunts is going to have some kind of raging point about a Rage broadhead.
Yeah, good or bad,
good
right?
or bad.
Yeah,
man. I've got one more in as far as gear goes, and it's more of kind of a saving tip. I think this is something that I may have learned this from you, I think. But my tip is buy Blaze paracord. And you can make things that you need out of it for one. But like one thing that I've done with it is like on my grunt call, I tie a loop, maybe 6-inch loop on the end of it with Blaze paracord, and I can hang my grunt call anywhere in a tree whenever I'm doing the mobile hunting thing. I can just find a spot on a limb or whatever. I mean, it literally can be the tiniest little, one leaf limb, and I can just hang it, loop it over that. So there's that purpose. But then if it gets windy and blows that out of that little one leaf, like it goes to the ground, but it's easy to find, right? And if I look down at the ground during my hunt, I go, oh yeah, I dropped my grunt call. Like, don't forget when I get down to get that. But it's easier to find, so it helps you. It keeps you from losing gear. I do the same thing with, you do it with your keys. You got orange paracord on your keys, I
got it on my rangefinder, my keys, and my rattling antlers.
Yeah,
and maybe something else too. I don't know. But I need to put it on my grunt call.
Yeah.
Because I got that little wooden grunt call. It was a good little... Yeah, man, killed a deer in Kansas with it. So, man, that makes me pretty happy.
Dude.
That's right.
Calling them in.
That's right, dude. No, that's a good one. And that's kind of just more like a gear tip, but it is budget when you're talking about trying to not lose stuff.
Yeah.
And it's super inexpensive. I mean, you get paracord at Walmart for like $4 for 100 foot or something, or maybe cheaper than that.
And
I don't know.
You're saving... you're saving having to buy different things that you can hang, your gear with or whatever, or like these different, whatever it could be. Like for instance, your antlers, right? Well, you could have bought some leather and done the same thing, but like
then it's brown.
Then it's brown. Then it's expensive.
I lost some antlers, and this is why this happened. I lost some on public, and they had a green cord, and we couldn't find them. Looked around from the dark, but if it had an orange, it'd stick out like that.
Yeah.
And you can especially buy paracord that has reflectors in it.
Oh yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
right.
I mean, there might be something weird with deer vision there that I don't know about, but as far as I know, I don't think you'd have any problems with that. Like some orange with some reflector in it, that'd be sharp.
Oh,
they use it for like guy lines on tents. That's what people use that for. That's good stuff. I have a couple more on gear, and I'll just run them kind of high level just to make sure, and for time usage here that we're not just going super long. But when it comes to sights on your bow, not everybody needs a 7-pin adjustable slider with a flip out and a light on it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like for most folks, a 3-pin sight that's just fixed that shoots 20, 30, 40 is going to kill. I mean, how many shots have you taken a deer over 40 yards?
0.
How many shots should you take a deer over 40 yards?
At least that I
knew were 40 yards. But in general, like that's out past 40 for most people is pretty tough, especially in a hunting situation. Now, I know there's all kinds of other aspects, and you're probably like, well, K.C., blah, blah, blah. But in general, like 3-pin sights fixed is going to kill 90% of the stuff out there. You know, so do you really need to go spend $300 on a sight, or can you get by with the $89 True Glow that does it?
Well, here's the thing: is you can set that top pin at 25, and for most bows, especially you guys that aren't doing the budget bow thing, and that you have brand new bows, that sucker's fast enough to pretty much just put your top pin on 25 and cover everything in between there. You know?
Absolutely.
So then you're looking at 45 on the other end. You know.
So camo stuff. I think that we could talk about this for hours, and we have a Camo System podcast. I think maybe episode 160 something.
Yeah, there's a video on that podcast too for YouTube.
So go check that stuff out. I'll put a link to that below too. And write that down. But you need to look at sale racks for camo. You need to check out some of the brands that aren't maybe like the tops that you hear about all the time, because everybody's coming out with a new and improved digitized version of camo, right? Whether it's like First Light knockoff or a Sitka knockoff or whatever, there's all kinds of stuff out there that's pretty good. And what you're going to get with those is at the lower ends, you know, the lighter weight stuff, it's still going to be great concealment. When you step up into like the better jackets and the warmth stuff, like you're going to get what you pay for when it comes to weight. You know, like you can stay warm for $200, or you can stay warm for $1,000. But for $200, you're going to look like a abominable snowman. And for Tyler has a pair of coveralls that were probably 20 years old. I bet they had that Realtree. What was that called?
Is it extra brown or?
I don't know. It has the real oak leaf looking stuff on. That's some good camo, man.
I know, I love it.
But it's like getting into a sleeping bag, but they're not lightweight. They're heavy. But they're cool. I kind of wish I had a pair too. I used to, and I don't know
Bill
what
Jordan pays us to wear that.
That's right. So look at sale racks. Check out some of the knockoff stuff. I found some Veil camo at Academy the other day. I don't even know what Veil is, or if it's like the Colorado, or if it's like the thing a bride wears. But but it looked real good, and I was like, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
So check out your big name retailers. This time of year before they're getting in the new stuff, and even like Academy has sales in September like coming up, and they'll have cheap cotton camo. And, if you're a box buying hunter, you don't even really need camo or whatever, just make sure you're buying stuff that is applicable to what you need. I see guys all the time. I used to work for a guy who now owns a high fence place. I know his pastures. One is 210 acres and one's 90 acres. And I cannot tell you how many people I see pictures of that have hunted on his property that are in $1,500 worth of camo. This is not a podcast where I explain the merits of free range versus high fence. However, if you can't go kill a scimitar horned oryx in blue jeans and a t-shirt in 90 acres, then maybe you need to reconsider some things, okay? But that's probably a good point to say, dude, we run some puffy solid jackets. You wear it every day, summer, winter, spring, it doesn't matter. But, like, dude, solids are where it's at for most applications. I mean, I don't know if I shot a deer. Did you shoot a deer in that solid jacket this year? I mean, I shot him wearing it, but like as your outer, we know other people like Chris B, our buddy, he shoots deer with a bow wearing solids in a tree stand all the time. And it just is going to depend on like if I need more clothes on or not. That's just a piece in
the only thing I worry about wearing that solid is being on the ground during the rut.
Or getting gored.
Getting hunched. Yeah.
I ran into that situation after I shot my deer in Kansas. There was a buck chasing does right by me, and I got a little bit scared.
You probably had your solid on the outside.
I did. Yeah. So, that's kind of our camo talk. Also, real quick, to be waterproof is either going to cost you like $20 or $250. So make your choice. They're both pretty lightweight though, so that's pretty nice. Trail cameras, probably the last thing to talk about on gear. If y'all have any other ideas or good budget saving things, let us know. But we've ran some really expensive trail cameras. We ran some really cheap trail cameras. There's definitely merits to all of them. You need to decide if you want a large quantity of cheaper trail cameras or a couple really good trail cameras or something in the middle. I think we're pretty much something in the middle, guys. A stuff that's going to be in that $80 to $120, $130 range is going to fit real nice for us and a lot of people, really, because you want something that works. There's nothing worse than walking up to a trail camera and be like, it didn't take pictures and I can't tell you why.
Yeah, and I'm a mile back here
exactly.
And it's 106 degrees.
I was really hoping to know if there's a deer here, right? And another thing you can look for is bundle packs on trail cameras. Like Moultrie sent us some the other day that are like $79 or less bundles that have a SD card and batteries and all kinds of stuff in them. And dude, you can't, like, if you want to total all three of those things together, your camera's going to have to cost you like $40 to make even anywhere close to the value of what that is, which is pretty cool. And 16 gig card, so I mean that's like over a month's worth of stuff for most people.
Yeah,
and then
you can also there's a lot of companies or sellers like eBay guys and that kind of thing, or Facebook Marketplace. They have these listings of like, you know, buy 4 or buy 10 for this price. You know what I mean? So you can get, you know, multiple deals on these.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, nowadays, this is what's different than whenever we did this 4 years ago. Cell cameras are cheap. Like, they used to be like, you know, those Reconyx boys are the only ones in the game. But, dude, I mean, now, like $100 cell cameras, you know, like Moultrie's fixing to come out with that Delta, and it's going to have cloud storage. Like, you don't even have to have a big SD card. You can literally get on the app and delete photos from your SD card that's in your camera, store them on your cloud, and like you only need one SD card. There's no more swapping it around. Like, it's going to be awesome. So for $99, you can get a Moultrie Delta cell camera that has Verizon or AT&T, I think, or T-Mobile or something.
I think it's AT&T and Verizon.
Yeah, so pretty much a carrier that, and you don't actually have to have that carrier yourself, you know, but just like they're going to have towers from most places. If you have cell service where you go, you can get a cell camera for $100 that's going to work pretty good and send you pictures to your phone. That's just hard to beat, man.
And Hunter, I know you're not listening, but you do have to format that SD card, even though you only need one.
You need to format the chip.
Sorry, he didn't understand when I said
not
SD
delete,
card.
But format.
You got to format the chip, even though you only need one for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So that's what I know about gear. And, of course, there's all kinds of trinkety, all kinds of other stuff we can talk about. I mean, we didn't even talk about guns and stuff, right? But I guess just to make mention of it, like, you don't have to go buy a new rifle. You don't even have to have a rifle to go gun hunt, right? I had a buddy in college who shot a deer with his 870 and killed it, and we ate it. You know what I mean? Like, on a local WMA near the college town. Like, it's not rocket science. Actually, ballistics is rocket science. But, like, as far as, like, shooting a deer with a gun, you don't have to go crazy with it, right? It's a lot of fun, too, and if you have the budget for that, absolutely. But we are trying to not spend that much money on stuff.
Yeah.
So,
you can buy blemished wood stock guns that are used for probably pretty good price, too, you know?
You know what I miss is used to at Cabela's, you could go in there, and they had, like, a big used rack. I should have bought a bunch of those 7.62 by 39s. I don't remember what they're called, right? But like they're like $100, and they're old, you know, Soviet guns or whatever. How cool would it be to have a couple of those just to be able to shoot a pig with or whatever? Because that's the one. I went to Academy yesterday. You could find what is that goofy? Oh, the 450 Legend or whatever that new cartridge is that somebody came out with to be able to use. You could find those. No one in Texas is going to shoot that. You could find something else obscure. I can't remember what it was. And then 7.62 by 39. That was the other shit. And they had a ton of those things, you know. And it's like, man, you wouldn't have any ammo shortage because the Soviets literally made billions of rounds of that back in the Cold War. But whatever. Anyways, I think that's going to probably be the end of gear for us. And now we're going to talk about some fun stuff that we have been doing here lately. Still on the budget-minded side of stuff, right? You and I both have purchased properties, which doesn't sound very budget-minded, but we're doing it in a budget fashion, right? We're taking what we love to do and finding a way to make it affordable to us. We both bought properties in that 20-ish acre range, and we are making improvements to those properties that are not, you know, I'm going to buy RTP seed drills and all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we're using what we have. Some rakes, some shovels, some hose. By the way, you can't say it on Facebook anymore. Don't say that on Facebook. You'll get banned. But we're using the tools on hand and maybe some creative and just cheapo type stuff to try to experiment and find ways to improve the deer habitat on our properties or the huntability of our properties. One of the things we did recently is I have borrowed a tractor from a buddy. He actually did some work swapping. I did a little bit of work, a little trim work at his dad's place for use of his tractor, and I put in My vegetable garden, I put in a watermelon patch, which is going to probably turn into a pea patch come late summer, and I'm going to have deer food there. You can, by the way, if y'all don't know this, talk about budget. You can buy the black-eyed peas from the store that come, in like 2-pound bags for $2 or whatever, and it's the same stuff as you buy in the little seed packets. It'll grow and sprout. Maybe
True
not
to
have
seed, tasty. And everything?
It might not have. Yeah, they're what would you call that? I can't remember. But yeah, true to type. So like they're not be crossed with anything. They might not have quite the same germination rates, but I guarantee you it's over 50%, probably closer to 80% germination rate. So I'm going to take a bag of black-eyed peas and put them out there. Once the melons start drying up in August. And get some water on them, and hopefully by October I'll have a good bean patch out there that the deer are hitting. Because I know you always hear soybeans on deer, but they'll eat anything that's in that family.
If it's a legume,
is that legumes? I don't know. I don't know if they are or not.
I don't know, but peas and beans,
they
pretty
love
much
them.
just doesn't matter.
So what I was trying to get at is that also while I had that tractor borrowed, we used it to put in some privacy screening on both of our properties for whitetails. And in that privacy screen, we took this cultivator
I feel like
deal.
I owe you.
Do you?
I didn't know that you did work to borrow that thing.
Oh, it's not a big deal. Okay. So I took that. It had a cultivator. It's 5 foot wide. Did 2 swipes wide, but it took a couple runs to really get all the grass chewed up. And then we actually put in with a planter type thing that I also borrowed, deer corn and feed Milo that you get from the feed store. And I know that both of those things will sprout. And that's all we're really going for, because we're not trying to produce a crop out of it. We just need the visual barrier. So it doesn't really matter to me if it's like, well, it's not going to pollinate well, or it's not going to produce the same type of ear of corn. That doesn't matter, right? Because we're trying to get something tall and green that will last. And we could have done it with like not even near as much seed as we bought, but we'll probably multi-purpose that for feeding and stuff. But
I've already fed all my corn.
Have you?
Yeah, it's all been eaten, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So this is a problem you had. Did the hogs end up coming in and ravage real bad? Or are you going to actually have some stuff in the ground?
Like it's weird. So you guys can actually go see this video. This releases on Thursday, April 29th, where we show what we did to my property, and we seeded corn and Milo. I had trouble even finding some of the Milo over the last couple of days, but there was a lot more than I could find corn, which I didn't go digging around too much, and I covered some of it up, but like, and it didn't look like the hogs are really rooted too much, but I couldn't find any corn, and I would go back out and put corn out again, and like I saw them out the other night.
The pigs?
Yeah. But,
you should have raised them.
Well, I was going to, but there was also 10 deer in my pasture, and when they took off, of course, the pigs are smart enough, to know that the deer know something that they don't know. Yeah, and they all took off back into the woods, so I just waited them out until about dark, and then they didn't come back out, so I walked up to the tree line and blasted 322 bolts into the woods. I was like,
go away, piggies.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the thing is, like, I just don't know if the corn's going to do it. So I actually, if you've been watching some of the Instagram stuff lately, I did some fertilization, and that hopefully what that will do is I've got this native grass that's called partridge pea, and it's I guess it's a legume of some sorts, but it essentially puts off a tiny little bean pod. And I had a bunch of that take off last year, and it gets super tall. It gets like 5-6 foot in some places. And so what I did was I fertilized some of the areas that were thick with that up in that same general area as my screen, which basically took the will take the place of that screening if it does fail. So I also have some blue stem that's pretty tall up there as well, and so I did some. I put some lime down because that'll help the soil base in the next few months as that stuff starts to mature towards the end of summer. So those are kind of my ideas, which are pretty cheap ideas for getting that stuff to turn into some kind of screening one way or another. That stuff you can do with just a simple $50, spreader. as opposed to having to borrow a trailer and all that stuff, which is ideal if you can, especially if you don't have hogs to ruin a plot for you. So anyway, those are a few things that kind of I have done with my property. I know KC and I have done some grafting as well. Now that's something that is fairly inexpensive to do, and if you're a good public right-of-way road ditch scouter, you can also get in on some of the more prolific fruit-bearing trees that may inhabit those ditches, and you can turn your property into that if you have that property. I know you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like why buying a property is actually a budget-minded thing to do.
That's true. And by the way, guys, Stone has joined the podcast. He's being quiet right now, but if you hear baby noise, sorry. So I did some little redneck math, and I know some places are going to be kind of more expensive to lease than what I'm going to tell you. But like if you want a decent lease, kind of in the central part of Texas or South Texas, I know a place that I have a buddy who leases his place, and it's about $8,000 a gun, and that gets you a week of turkey season and bow season in the month of November, and then the Christmas week as well for hunting their place. So it's not really a season lease even, right? And
wow.
And you're going to find some places that are cheaper than that. Like I said, you're going to find some places that are way more expensive than that. But that's like a good place where you got a really great chance to shoot a 150 every year, which is kind of what we're all looking for, I think.
Yeah.
So $8,000 a year, and if you divide that by 12, that's going to get you what? What does that come? You're Mr. Quick Math on your feet. So.
Well, 84 would be 7, so 6.5-ish.
$650 a month.
Yeah.
So my property costs us per month, I believe $450 per month is what our note costs us. Now that's over 20 years or whatever it is, right? I'm giving y'all some personal finance details, so just take that for what it is. But and then you have property taxes too, which runs about $1,200 a month. I mean $1,200 a year. But we're going to get that into wildlife. At some point in time, it's going to go down to about $80 a year once you do that. But
there's so many aspects to all of this, right?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
Owning a property, like because obviously, like the chances of, like, so you got a good chance of shooting a 150 on that lease every year. You probably don't have a good chance of shooting a 150 here every year. But there's so many other benefits, right?
Yeah, you don't have to drive 6 hours to go to the lease, and you don't have, which their place is not this way, but I've had leases where, like, when you're not there, you don't know who's out there.
Yeah.
And you don't have that unrest, and you don't have the gas you're burning. You don't have all this stuff that you're trying to do. Whereas, like, at home, you can go out there and hunt in the evening and still come in and cook supper for your family.
Year-round.
Year-round.
I mean,
That's
you got a year-round opportunity.
I grafted a persimmon tree this morning on my own property, you know, and it's costing me $6,000 a year to own or something like that, So sometimes land ownership is actually less expensive than a deer lease.
Yeah, and I would say that the timing of the purchases of our properties were pretty well planned right now.
I could sell mine for so much more.
Me too. Like I could literally, guys, you don't even understand, but like I could almost retire off of what
I know, isn't it nuts?
Like it feels like at least, but like I could make a lot of money on my property, and I just bought it a year ago, so, I mean, there's obviously never a better time than now to buy a property, but, I do think that, probably maybe 2 years from now, we're going to really see it be a good time to buy property as well. So keep that in your back pocket and think about it. And like we were saying, there's so many benefits, man. You get it year round. You don't have to hunt amongst cattle that are grazing on your property if you don't want to.
I get to choose what's out there.
Yeah. I mean, I bet there's cattle grazing on that property down there.
Yes.
May or may not be, but usually
they don't destroy it because they like to hunt too. That's part of the other deal with their place though, is that like family still hunts the property.
Yeah.
But everybody works together and it all makes sense. Everybody's after the same stuff, and the carrying capacity is so high on deer down there. And that's one of the, I guess the negatives to what you're talking about around here is that our deer densities aren't going to be that high. You don't know what Joe Schmo next door is shooting and all that kind of stuff too. So, I mean, there's definitely a positive to both aspects. But if you want that benefit and the enjoyment of land ownership, it is obtainable and within most people's budget.
Yeah,
you just have to take other steps in your life to make that happen. Like me and my wife don't live in a big brand new house. We live in a older house, but it's still nice.
Yeah.
Unless we've torn it up with baby stuff everywhere, And I know y'all haven't even had a house for quite a few years. You're finally building one, which is cool.
I cannot. It can't happen soon enough. Like there are things that I really want to do, and I'm like, it's going to put us out another month. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're getting into this lifestyle stuff now, and that's a big part of this whole hunting on a budget kind of thing. One thing I would suggest is to find a friend who will do taxidermy. That's something that I have. You and I guess both have a friend that will do Euro mounts at a pretty good rate and does a really good job. And obviously, being a friend, like he's gonna do it right. He's not gonna just fly through it or whatever. So that's a good thing. I know we got a friend Cody. That he's got friends that do taxidermy for him that will do full body mounts that do a pretty good job. And
full body mounts?
Not full body, dadgummit. Shoulder mounts. They probably would do a full body if you asked them to, which he should have probably got that one he shot down here done that way.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's kind of a once in a lifetime deal. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of a tip I have. I mean, you could also shoot smaller bucks if you didn't want to spend as much on taxidermy.
That's right. Euros are way cheaper. You ran into that last year. I talked you into a shoulder mount on a Texas deer. It's like, maybe you got to, man.
Dude, I mean, I'm glad that I did now.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I had to think about it, at the time because I'm like, man, I got a lot of season ahead and lots of tags and stuff, and I already got one at the taxidermy. So, which I've got back, which I'm excited about, and hopefully we'll be able to hang that sucker soon. So
I hope you do, because I'm ready to see him. Another thing, I guess, just real quick, that doesn't have to have a lot of extra talk to it is, ow, are you okay? Stone just whacked his head up against the headphones. You took skin off your ear, dude.
Ooh.
Ow. Just all it is one sentence: quit dipping. That's all I have to say to y'all. Quit dipping, and you'll have a lot more money.
Yeah. That's. I was behind somebody the other day, and I'm not, thinking about this all the time or nothing. But like I was behind somebody at the convenience store the other day, and it was like, they said, I'll take a pack of Marlboro short somethings, whatever, and like I saw them put down like a $20 bill, and I was like, I wonder how much they're going to get back out of that $20 bill. It's like one of those things you have to kind of, or I was kind of thinking about, and I'm like, man, it's expensive when you talk about like dipping or smoking. I mean, you're talking about buying another lunch every day or whatever, so could get pretty rough. Another thing I think about, is like if you're in a bait state, just throw corn. You know what I mean? Like that's something that I always think, like you've got these flavored corns, you've got these different kinds of, attractants and baits, and you can, do some planning. And we've talked about doing some planning as far as the screening goes and stuff we talked about earlier, but you could plant food plots and stuff like that. But time and money are a couple of things you have to think about when you do that, as opposed to going out there and filling up a feeder or hand feeding corn, which is typically just the cheapest thing that you can feed, and it works wonders. So if you're in a bait state, that's a tip that I would definitely give out. I talked about the map scouting thing earlier. That was something that I kind of talked about, and I think that's a very important thing. We use OnX. OnX is just since 2017, I think, is when we started using it. We killed Nameless because of OnX using that year. That was what made us big time believers, and we've used it ever since. They believe in what we're doing here too, and it means a lot that a big company like that can see, that something that means so much to us is also something, valuable to them. And so anyway, I just want to kind of throw that out there. It's, having a mapping system outside of just Google or whatever can definitely help you out. So, make sure that you're with that scouting system, you're spending less gas going places when you can just hop on your phone at night and save that gas, or as KC says, the Biden gas, which is increasingly more and more expensive. So, another thing that KC does really well. And I think that it was important for other people to understand that they need to learn to make a good sandwich. So
That's right.
I think that a good sandwich will keep you from craving junk food and stuff that you can spend a lot of money on a
I'll
deer
eat
trip.
sandwiches every day for lunch and most days dinner on a trip. If I get to have pickles, lettuce, tomato, all that stuff on there.
Dude, how many Cherokee Purples are we going to put on a sandwich this year?
I've got a bunch. We got a bunch of options. Kellogg's breakfast, all this stuff.
I got some blue ones, man. Do you have any blue?
No.
I got several
Stop.
different. I got indigo rose and some different blue tomatoes as well. So
That's going to be crazy.
I know.
So, anyways, the ability to make a good sandwich is a big deal. My youth kids always say, like, man, sandwiches are so much better with y'all. And it's legit because it's not nasty Kraft American cheese.
What are the keys? What are the keys, real quick?
Oh, deli meat and some type of, like, jack cheese or
like a Munster?
or a Varty or something like that. And then, like, good mayonnaise, not Miracle Whip because it's gross.
Dukes.
Yeah, Dukes is what we eat a lot of. And then
We would like for
you're
them
not
to
really
sponsor
a
this
pickle
podcast.
guy, but I like pickles a lot.
I do them when you have them. Slab
Yeah.
pickles, man, on them
Yeah,
sandwiches.
them stackers. Or if you want to swap out those pickles for some yellow peppers, that's a good way
Like
to do it.
pepperoncinis?
Yeah, or just a banana ring or whatever's what I've got in there right now. And that's
Are they?
gonna,
Are those the pickled ones?
Yeah.
I don't like the pickled banana peppers
Really?
that much. I just don't.
Oh man, I'm gonna make a bunch of them this year.
Are you?
Out of the garden. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like them a lot.
At least the ones I've had in the past.
And
I don't
I've
know.
got
Maybe whatever you're throwing down on the home
I've
style.
I've got the budget brand in there too, and it's pretty good.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing because about as cheap as you can go on a hunting trip is Taco Bell, and you're still going to spend $7 to $11.
I used to be way cheaper.
I know.
It's crazy.
Dude, I used to be able to go to Taco Bell in college and get out of there for like $3.63 or something, man. Which that was like, 46
if we wanted
years
to
ago.
buy the 12 pack of tacos, we could still do it and get out pretty cheap. But
Yeah.
man,
You got to get some of the good stuff there.
And that's the other thing is maybe we will do that some this year on the road. But like for the most part, like I don't eat Taco Bell a whole lot, so I kind of want to get something when I'm there.
I know. So anyway, that's one thing. In regards to learning to make a good sandwich, being something in food and everything, I'm going to stay on this. Learn to cook. So follow me for a second here. If you cook a delicious, just on point, wild game meal for your family and they eat them, because I know so many guys that are like, my wife won't eat deer meat, and it's like, and that can put a hamper or a damper, on what you've got going. I need to go do some laundry.
You could put a hamper on it. It would just, you could put a hamper on top of somebody and they can't go anywhere. So I get what you're saying.
Essentially, if you can cook really well and understand, like, I don't know, how to disguise the meat a little bit until they get more comfortable with it or whatever it is.
Lots of cumin, lots of chili powder, lots of garlic.
Noodles,
Yes.
like dishes that it is included in, right? You'll with that, and you've got your family eating it, especially your wife and that kind of thing. You'll be so much more like fiscally efficient in the way that you're spending money to harvest deer in regards to that, like utilizing that against your grocery budget, right? So that essentially is a way to kind of save or use money responsibly. I think that's like, to me, that's kind of like where I'm at with all this lifestyle stuff. I think that there's definitely other things you can talk about. Like you said, you could get on the old Bald White Man podcast and listen to guys tell you better money saving techniques and that kind of thing.
I guess kind of to wrap it up, this will be a great thing for you to do. Start a podcast and do a bunch of work, and then you can get on ProStaffs, and maybe one of these days people will pay you money to shoot their stuff and all that. That's what we did. But honestly, if you don't have a podcast now, I'd advise not starting it because it's actually pretty tough to do.
One thing you can do, though, this is the last tip I got. You can tune into the gear reviews on the Element YouTube channel.
That's right.
And watch some of those, and that'll help you to spend that money more wisely, I guess. So you can see how we've got some unboxings and just straight up gear reviews, and that will kind of tell you what we like, what we don't. And if you're not already doing that, that can help you to spend your money wisely on different pieces of gear that we have reviewed. So something to kind of help you out there. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you listening through this one with us. Hopefully it was a little more exciting, a little bit faster paced than the previous one, which was episode 16, like I said, which was however many years
I think
ago.
people downloaded that one kind of like ASMR or whatever. They listened to it while they slept. Kind of like golf on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Take a nap. So hopefully you didn't nap through this one. You gained something from it. And, there's other things. If you've got questions about gear, if you've got questions about anything that we've said in this podcast, feel free to reach out. You can send us an email through the website or just a message through any of our social media. Remember to check out the YouTube channel, like I said, for some of the gear reviews, some of the camo podcasts that you talked about earlier. And remember to check out our sponsors that we've talked about and mentioned in this podcast. We've tried to bring you some partners that have practical and moderately priced gear and stuff that's super effective for you. So remember that, and remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.